In just a few minutes, SAFA will give an update on South Africa's complaint over its World Cup qualifier against Ghana. Well, in the build-up to that, let's bring in the eNCA sports editor, Vata Nogobeni, to continue our conversation. So, Vata, we are a few minutes away from hearing from SAFA House. It's a question I asked of Tsepo Tobane a bit earlier on. Danny Jordan's tone sounds like the penalty decision that led to the goal that ultimately dumped Bafana Bafana out of the World Cup qualifiers is just the tip of the iceberg. They are seeking to make an issue of officiating throughout that match.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. I think to us, what we must always remember is that the penalty is just a part of what was the problem. And what SAFA now needs to do is that they need to go and prove to FIFA, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this is not a case of poor officiating, but rather a case of biased officiating. And that's why I keep on going back to the game that happened between Senegal and South Africa in Polokwane, where it was a World Cup qualifier for the Russian World Cup. And we saw what happened there, in that the referee was found guilty, and let me go back to the referee was found guilty and banned for life of unlawfully influencing a match result.
Yeah. It's not making a mistake. So unlawfully influencing a match,
yeah,
that's a different terrain.
It's completely different from poor officiating.
Yeah.
And we need to have that differentiation. Is that SAFA are not saying, they're not saying that whether the referee was bad or good on the day. It's not about that. It's about the fact that SAFA believe that the referee went in with an intent of influencing the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
That, I think that is at the crux of their complaint to FIFA, and that will, I mean, the implications of that are massive. One has to feel for the referee, because he is only human after all. But then one can never feel for somebody who goes out of their way to make sure that they influence the game, because that then speaks that there could be bribery involved as well.
But Vata, how did this come about anyway? Because I was just thinking about, how. I don't know, it strikes me as strange that a game involving Ghana would be officiated by a referee from somewhere in West Africa, in Senegal. I would have thought, and I don't know, you can tell me how these things work. If the game involves South Africa, that's Southern Africa, and Ghana, West Africa, given what we know about the football politics and the competitiveness as well as the politics involved between the various regions, someone from East Africa, someone from Central Africa, North Africa would have officiated in this game. I don't know. Does anything hang on that?
Well, to us, I think you raised an important fact, and I think that's what CAF should have looked at a long time ago. That is usually how CAF actually allocates referees to these teams, especially for crucial games like these AFCON qualifiers and World Cup qualifiers. Again, Tebogo Motlanthe, the CEO of SAFA, raises the fact that every time there's a West African official involved, there's always a suggestion of biasness. There's questions always brought about the officiating. So I think this is a matter that people need to seriously look at. Not just CAF itself, I think FIFA as well, because they are the governing body, the global governing body of football. And with them looking at it, I think it will start influencing some of the decisions made by CAF. And I'm glad a guy like Patrice Motsepe is there. He's got many problems, a litany of issues to deal with. But when it comes to officiating, and just the way in which teams are treated, Tulas, I don't need to tell you about what happens, how teams get treated when they go to certain countries. I think that is another issue that needs to be handled. South Africa gives, we roll out the red carpet. We make sure that teams are very, very comfortable. Maybe we should. By the way, did they have to drive 9 hours ahead of this game? Apparently so. They flew to Accra and then had to drive 9 hours to Coast City. That, again, completely unacceptable. And the Ghana team
9 hours
flew from Johannesburg as well, with Bafana Bafana home, but I don't think they had to endure the 9-hour bus trip. And it is not good ahead of such a crucial match to be traveling first by air that far and then being on a bus for 9 hours. Just completely unacceptable.
So do we know what the threshold is that Bafana Bafana's complaint will need to meet with FIFA for it to be successful. We were talking earlier on about unlawful and intentional influencing of a game, which is in a different terrain from being merely human and making the wrong call. From what we see in that instance there, I don't know. I'd have to be convinced that there was a mistake. I'm no referee, but that's not a penalty at all.
I think from where you were standing, Tulas, you had a clear view of the situation. And if someone is being pulled and you go as far as giving yellow card, surely he falls backwards and not forward in the way that the counter player fell.
Yeah.
The counter player fell forward. And you could see that there was no touch by Derek on him. So, and he went on after to dish out a yellow card. But however, Tebogo Motlanthe again alluded to the fact that they can prove that 80% of the decisions that were made went against Bafana Bafana. And again, it's them, it goes beyond just proving that the decision went against Bafana. It is proving that there was an unlawful intent to influence the result of the game, which is going to be very, very difficult. However, SAFA seem convinced that they've got the facts behind them and they can prove it.
Yeah, locate that for me within the broader geopolitics of football, Vata, because, while you talk about the possibility of unlawful and intentional influencing of the game, it sort of harks back to the era of Sepp Blatter, of Issa Hayatou. And I thought Gianni Infantino and people like Patrice Motsepe coming in was part of that to say we're closing the chapter on some of the past practices in football. We'll embrace technology to ensure that mistakes are minimized, but also we're cleaning up football. It doesn't seem like that's happening then.
To us, it's going to take a long time to clean up. This is decades of I think, maladministration that's happened in global football, and we're talking now African football. African football has found itself divided, by the Francophone countries and the Anglophone countries, and obviously the North African countries. That is really the core of the divide of African football. And to change that, yes, Motsepe stepping into the mold and becoming the first, president from Sub-Saharan Africa has almost changed the mindset. But at the same time, the headquarters of CAF still sit in Cairo. And there's a big perception that a lot of influence that happens still at CAF still comes from the North African countries. And where you thought getting rid of Issa Hayatou would get rid of the influence of Francophone countries and the West Africans, I think perception this time is not fact, and so that needs to be done.
Let's do that thing I've always wanted to do, Monday evening football analysts. Let's see if the team actually has that clip, and let's play it back, and then we talk to it at the point at which that penalty call was made, and we will roll it, and then you can tell us why it's not a penalty, because Tsepo also makes a point about the corner kick itself. There it is. I think we'll need to roll it again. Unfortunately, we don't have, we didn't plan this ahead of time to have that slow motion.
I mean,
but
look at that
you've seen
again,
it many times. I think there it is. There it is.
There we go. No one is touching him.
Wow.
No one is touching him, and he just goes to ground. He's got two Bafana players around him. And second, also, to us, you look at that should have been a retake of that penalty. Because you see the Ghana player encroaching into the 18-yard box before the kick is actually taken.
A second.
So again, that should have been a retake, but I'm getting
football
quite
players
technical.
are known for their theatrics, but I think that takes it to really another level altogether. When you see that player collapsing to the ground.
One thing I've enjoyed about the English game is that they decided that they will punish such incidents, players diving, trying to influence a decision. So I think what's important is that African football needs to start taking a similar stance. It was never prevalent in the African game. I think we're known for our robust football and so on. Yeah. It's just unfortunate that but it was done by a player who's playing in England.
So that is SAFA House, what you are seeing on screen now. Preparations underway. At any moment now, the executive of SAFA, the South African Football Association, will come through and they'll take their seats there. We'll bring you that briefing live when it gets underway. But in as far as Patrice Motsepe is concerned, how closely will he be watching, one, this briefing, but two, the overall outcome of the complaint and the appeal for a review by South Africa, given that he doesn't want to be seen to have too much allegiance to his country of origin and country of birth, but at the same time, he does have the task of moving, African football into the 21st century?
Without I think he will look at this case and say to himself, this could tarnish or enhance his image as a CAF president. And this happens a few months after taking office. The good thing for SAFA is that Danny Jordan serves also as a special advisor to Petrus Motsepe. And Petrus Motsepe's endorsement into the CAF presidency came with a lot of influence from Infantino, the FIFA president. So he will look at this and say, and it would have heard a lot that was said from Danny on the way back from Ghana. And I think he will sit down and say, SAFA are complaining, Benin are complaining. There's a lot of noise being made around officiating on the African continent, especially when it came to these games. And that have come from influential people like Epito Miswane. Former players are complaining about officiating. So he's going to say to himself, I need to address this, and I need to address it urgently. And I'm sure he's also talking to Infantino as well. He also serves as vice president of FIFA. So, this could make or break Motsepe's presidency because it comes so early, in his tenure. And he is in the country, so he'll definitely be paying attention to that. Hopefully he's there. If he's not there, but he'll be listening to exactly what SAFA is saying, and he will want to act on it very, very quickly.
So there's a separate conversation, though, Vata, that we as South Africans need to have realistically. At the moment, the best case scenario for us is that, a replay is ordered, that there should be a replay of this game. What happens when the replay comes? Because I've seen some people comparing the situation with those municipalities where there was no outright winner to say, listen, be careful what you wish for. You might wish for a rerun of those elections and actually you lose more after that. How much of a conversation should we be having about Bafana Bafana's own performance and being the authors of their own destiny in as far as what happens next?
The wonderful thing, they've been the captains of their own ship since the beginning of this campaign. Since Hugo Broos came in, he's redefined the identity and character of the side. And the wonderful thing, again, to us, is the passion they've shown and the pride I think they've restored in the badge on the jersey. So I think a replay, again, will probably play into their hands. They were leading the group, 3 points ahead. They had hardly conceded goals. They had not lost under Hugo Broos. I think you were starting to see a positive trajectory of this team. And we were only left to wonder now what could have been had that dubious penalty not been awarded.
Yeah.
So I think a replay, you could actually see Bafana Bafana go through to the next round. And dare I say this, Tulas, for a country that has long suffered, from Bafana Bafana's underperformance. We've seen with the Proteas again, another World Cup out, not making a final, and the injustice of this week when we've seen World Rugby not giving any recognition of what the Springboks have done this season as a team and as individuals. One would say this Bafana Bafana team, this is not a forced dawn. I think we are looking at the real thing, and if given an opportunity again, they will prove, this group of players will prove once again that they are better than what a lot of people think they are.
But as far as process is concerned, then, Vata, the processes are not awaiting the outcome. There has been the draw that has taken place for the next stage of qualifiers. And naturally, because the decision, the outcome of Bafana Bafana versus Ghana stands until reviewed and set aside, they've had to do that draw and factor that in. How tough does the road ahead get, given what has happened with this draw? Should we get into, in fact, I don't think we'll have time to get into that. Let's see if we can give it a quick run before Danny Jordan and the team starts speaking.
Simple, there's still AFCON to come, and the last round of qualifiers is a bit further out. So they've got time. They've got time. I think time won't be the enemy this time. I think time will work in their favor.
Yeah, but in terms of the other teams that they will face then, and you and I are talking here quite optimistically because this has happened before. Previously, the dodgy refereeing had been in favor of South Africa, right? And
yes,
that was against Senegal, and it had to be replayed.
And Senegal won the replay and went through to the World Cup.
So based on that, that's perhaps why we are talking optimistically that there might be a repeat of that precedent.
There might be a repeat of that precedent, and you've got to look at the performances of the national team as well. Under Hugo Broos, I think that man has got what it takes to take his team. He's won an AFCON with Cameroon. So there's nothing new. There's nothing that shakes him about what goes on the continent. He knows what he needs to do.
And it's a big shift, is it not, in terms of the conversation around Hugo Broos, and I'm not sure that's how you pronounce his name, you'll correct me, in that initially there was skepticism when he was appointed. And then there was this whole issue about when is he getting here? There's crucial work to be done towards the qualifiers, and he still needed to get vaccinated, etc., etc. Until they start speaking, let's see if you can give it a go. So the conversation has shifted.
I think, you know, to us, there's a lot of ignorance within the South African football fraternity on what actually goes on the continent. And a guy like Hugo Broos, who's done so well with the Cameroon, all you got to do is look at his CV, and you know, he's a good coach. You know, and unfortunately, we live in such a closed environment here in South Africa that we think the PSL is one of the best leagues in the world and so on, and yet no crowd attendance. You see the lack of goal scoring and all that stuff. So I think in a guy like Hugo Broos, he's gone beyond proving, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that again, you know, he's a man, and we've seen new faces, and we've seen the results.
All right, I'm told the briefing has actually started, Vata, so let's go live now to SAFA House in